Every 3 months, I plan my life on a giant science fair board. I do this because I genuinely believe that life is an experiment, and something about the science fair board, the trifold science fair board, like the whole energy of it just really helps me believe that, I guess you could say, in my body. And this is something I've been doing. I call it Big Paper Planning Day. I've been doing it for years now. I think our first one was in 2021. And so I do it with a group every 3 months. I do it myself every 3 months. You can see I have decorated these science fair boards over and over again throughout the years. I don't know, I just figured it's time for me to make a video and talk about it and share more of this process with you all, because if there's nothing else, I just want more people to know that there is a way to plan your life that is not so rigid. It does not expect you to do the same thing every single day. There is a self-compassionate, abstract, creative, design-oriented way to, do the things you say you're going to do. And so that's what I want to offer you in this video. I also just have to start this by saying thank you to Anna Howard of Wild Geese for making a video talking about this. I loved watching it. It truly was a dream work life moment for me to see, just somebody who's done this process with me or with Pretty Decent talk about it in that way. So thank you, Anna. But I don't know. I want to share the pieces of my Big Paper Planning Day board. And what I hope is that, if you're curious about this way of planning, that you leave this video with more information, maybe a prompt, maybe a cue to try something like this out for yourself. And so with that, let's get into why I plan my life on a giant science fair board. So just to give you a little bit of background, I have ADHD. I am self-employed. I've been self-employed since 2017, at least full-time. I did not go into working for myself or running a business with a game plan. I didn't have a ton of savings. I wasn't I'm leaving my job with this really mindful thing and I'm going, no, I am self-employed because it is an accommodation for what I didn't know then but know now is my ADHD, is my just the way that I work in the world. At the time I was pretty young. I was 22, 23 years old when I started working for myself and running a business, and I was just I have to do it this way. I have to figure it out because I can't get up and go to work every single day. I was deep in grief. I was really depressed and I just couldn't do it. And so I have kind of had to figure out throughout the years how to be consistent, how to manage myself is really what I think of it a lot of the time. When you work for yourself, you don't have somebody over your shoulder being like, hey, did you do that thing? Hey, what are your priorities? You don't have a manager. You are your own manager. And so naturally you go looking to other people who have similar jobs to try and figure out how is anyone doing this? And a lot of the advice that you find, especially on that side of the internet, the entrepreneurship side of the internet, is well, just do it. Just do it. Just make a list. Just believe you can, and then you will. Just do the things you say you're going to do. Just finish the job. And it never worked for me. It never made sense to me, which I realize now probably does have a lot to do with being very late diagnosed ADHD. And so I was always curious. I was always going down rabbit holes. I was always studying, trying to figure out, well, what are the other ways? How else do we do it? So one of the first things that helped me kind of figure out a different way was learning about design thinking, which of course is a kind of school of thought around design, which is rooted in this idea of experimentation and iteration and trying again. And I really loved reading about that process of design applied to life, right? What we might call life design. The other thing that really helped me and has always helped me throughout my life is getting a big piece of paper out and thinking visually. I've always been a really visual thinker. I need things to be big. I need places to spread out on paper. And I need visual cues. So I'm one of those people where, I don't know, you might call it object permanence, I guess, like a baby. If I don't see it, it doesn't exist. My salad greens cannot go in the kitchen drawer, right? Because I will forget that they're there and then they will wilt. It's much better for me and my type of brain to have that kind of thing visible and within reach if I want to actually use it. So thinking about these things, one, the life design experiment approach, two, the big paper kind of mind mapping style of thinking, And then 3, just honestly having the phrase big paper planning day stuck in my head for a really long time, not knowing what it wanted to be, like texting my friends being like, what do you think that this could be? Like, there's something here that I want to explore, but I don't know what form it's going to take, is all what led me to developing this process. My favorite thing about it is that it's an excuse to go school supply shopping. In using sticky notes, in buying one of these trifold science fair boards maybe, or a big piece of paper, in having like an excuse to luxuriously indulge in like getting school supplies and going to the dollar store and like feeling like life is beginning again. The best thing about that for me is that it kind of rewrites my personal history with the science fair, which was always, oh no, I procrastinated. I have to tell mom the night before that we need to go to Walmart and get a science fair board and make something up at the last minute. So that's really all about the materials, right? Like that's the first question most people ask, what do I need? I'm like, a big piece of paper and then the school supplies that make you feel like your life is about to begin again. So the sticky notes, the gel pens, whatever you really want. It's meant to be, I think it's really meant to be an indulgence of novelty. I, again, have ADHD, and like novelty is like one of my most motivating forces in the world. I get really jazzed up by like having a new craft supply haul, or starting a new year, or beginning a new journal, or having like first day of a new routine. Like everything is always really motivating in the beginning because it's novel and it's new. And so that's why we do it every 3 months, is because you're trying to kind of like structure that novelty in your own life rather than waiting for January again to start over. What if it's like January, we start over April, we start over July, we start over October, we start over. That's kind of how Big Paper Planning Day is structured. It's meant to just be like, okay, and again, what did I learn? What do I want to change, right? So there's this repetitiveness, this kind of manufacturing of novelty in our own life, combined with this life design thinking, experimental mindset, combined with this very literal visual symbol in the science fair board of this idea that like my life for the next 3 months is an experiment. So that's why it works. The other thing I, of course, want to talk about is how it works, because you might be wanting to try it out for yourself. So to make things extraordinarily simple, Big Paper Planning Day, I do it on the trifold science fair board in 3 parts. I start with vision. I might do a vision boarding. I might write out a list of 11 things that I want, and then write a diary entry in present tense from a day in my life where I have those 11 things. That is my favorite exercise. I come back to it every single time. I ask everyone to do it before they come to the live events or the, retreats, because this exercise of like putting yourself in the place of, I have what I want, I'm there already, I'm writing in present tense. It just gets really great feedback. Everyone says it helps. And I think it helps get to the point of Big Paper Planning Day, which is figuring out what is underneath our desires. Big Paper Planning Day happens in a really tight constraint. It is just thinking about 3 months of my life. I'm not planning the year. I'm not planning the next 5 years. I'm just planning the next 3 months. And so obviously there's things that I want that I'm not going to get in the next 3 months, right? I'm not going to buy a house right now in the next 3 months. That's probably not going to happen for me. I'm not going to completely rewrite my financial situation. I can blow my own mind, but I'm not going to like flip my life over. And so when we're thinking about this gradual process, I think it's really important to be able to see the things that I want, one, as like a compass pointing me in the direction of the kind of life that I want, but 2, as symbols, right? As representative symbols of things that I value or feelings that I want. And so if I make this list of 11 things that I want, and then I write a diary entry in present tense where like I have the Jeep Wrangler and I have a house with a pool, I might notice underneath that some values. And so that's another thing that I put on my Big Paper Planning Day board, are values that I want to experiment with or uphold, kind of a mix of like core values, and then usually one that's like, I wonder what it would be like to prioritize beauty over the next 3 months, or discipline, or structure, or dignity. And so I like to kind of play with a different value each time. And then of course we go to the abstract goals. So kind of like how the things that I want are representative of values that I have or experiences I want to have, we do the same thing with our goals. And I guess that's the most important thing to say, is that at Big Paper Planning Day, we do not make SMART goals in the traditional sense. The big thing that we focus on is actually abstract goals. A goal is defined as a desired state of being. And so if I'm thinking about like, I want a house with a pool, that is like a desire, right? It's a material desire, but I have to think a little bit deeper and think about, what do I actually want? Why do I want the house with a pool? So abstract goals are all about the why. You can see in my most recent 12-week year, I made 3 abstract goals: to trust myself with money, to create space for magic and good ideas, and to try in public. Those were my abstract goals. And those, I know, might sound like very wibbly wobbly, but they are 100% of the point of this process. Because what those abstract goals do is they capture, for me at this time in my life, my core motivation. I want to like create space for magic and good ideas, meaning I want to be in like a rhythm of being like, oh, I have something to say, I have something to share. Oh, that was really good, right? I want to work on a book. I want to write things down. I want to be researching. I want that like flow of being like, wait, I'm getting it, right? Which to me usually happens through writing. And so I could make my goal to write a certain number of words every day, but who's to say that that would capture that feeling, right? And my goal is my desired state of being. So I want the magic, I want the good ideas, I want to notice and know the name of the birds on my walk. And that goal, that abstract goal, really captures that feeling. How we make it concrete, how we make it into an action, into a plan, is at Big Paper Planning Day through action menus. So for that goal, to create space for magic and good ideas, I have an action menu for high energy days and low energy days that essentially serves yet again as a visual cue. So that action menu is there to prompt me, to help me think of ways that I can achieve that goal on any given day. So how might I create space for magic and good ideas? Any answer that I come up with to that question is going to go on that action menu. And especially on the low energy section of that menu, I'm trying to think of things that I could do to achieve the goal. Because that's the cool thing about an abstract goal. When you do anything from these action menus, or anything at all that feels like, oh, that was me trying in public, that was me creating space, that was an example of me trusting myself with money. You know, I had that hard conversation. I made my coffee at home. I asked for a discount on that annual subscription plan, whatever. Any of those things that we do is not just getting closer to some far off concrete thing, right? So I'm not doing something small to trust myself with money and then being like, well, only $600,000 to go, you know, and just being trapped in a state of constantly pursuing and like inching closer to something that can be really deeply demotivating. Like the research supports that feeling far away from your goals all the time is really demotivating. And so what an abstract goal does is it brings it down to earth. It brings it within the context of your life right now, within the context of your life just over the next 3 months, right? Like, how do I achieve the goal that I associate with buying the house with a pool right now while I'm living in this stunning place that doesn't have a pool? And so all of that to say, right, Big Paper Planning Day, what we've covered so far: vision, values, abstract goals, which is just to say your why, action menus. Every single action on the action menu achieves the abstract goal. They are prompts, they are visual cues. All of that works together. And for me, the biggest thing that it does is it helps strengthen my identity. Like this by far is the biggest thing that Big Paper Planning Day has offered to me. I now feel like the kind of person who achieves her goals every day. And that is really significant to me because for most of my life, I was the kind of person who, to use our very literal example again, forgot to tell my mom that the science fair was tomorrow, had to go to Walmart and get a science fair board in the middle of the night, and was constantly like, oh my God, I don't stick to anything. I'm so flaky. I go and buy all these craft supplies and then I forget about them, right? Like this classic ADHD, inattentive, especially like girl inattentive experience of being flaky and forgetful and messy and flighty, all of these things that I told myself about myself for so long, I now have a lot of evidence that that is not true. I have a lot of evidence that actually I achieve my goals every single day because my goals are abstract. And I'm constantly finding ways to, we call them gold stars, right? To give myself a gold star for making my coffee at home. Boom, trusted myself with money. Now, with all that being said, the last thing that we do at Big Paper Planning Day is, yes, we do talk about targets and results, which is the more concrete SMART goal feeling thing. The primary difference between, I think, going into a plan and being like, oh, well, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week from now until then. That's my plan, right? And what we do at Big Paper Planning Day is that first example, what most people associate with goals and with planning, right? I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. That's it. I don't know about you, but for me, what's always happened is, oh, I fell off. Okay, I guess I just don't finish what I start. I guess I'm just insert self-deprecating thought here, right? And so the thing that we do at Big Paper Planning Day is we really make that experimentation piece very literal. So partly inspired by On Lore's Tiny Experiments, which is a great book if you haven't read it. We do 3 tiny or micro experiments throughout our Big Paper Planning Day process. Because we plan every 3 months, we have, it's really a 3-month process. And so every single month, I essentially make a hypothesis is the best way to describe it. I say, I think that I will go to the gym not 5 times a week for the rest of my life, but maybe 15 times over the next 4 weeks, right? Or 15 times between now and date. This does several things. One, I have a period and I am more attached to the moon than I often am the sun in terms of my cycle. And so this gives me a lot of permission to go to the gym 5 times 1 week, 2 times 1 week, right? And make up for it throughout the month. And to have some days or some weeks where I have a lot more energy and to really give myself grace in that aspect and not to expect myself to wake up and do the same thing every single day, which is very patriarchal productivity advice for what it's worth. The second thing that this does is it really kind of cements that idea of a target being an educated guess. So I'm very careful not to say, I'm going to make this amount of money if I have zero evidence supporting that educated guess, right? I might say my ambition is to make this amount of money in January of 2026, but if I haven't gone and looked at how much I made last January, the January before, what I'm at risk of is just picking an arbitrary number and then not having it rooted in anything, which nobody would tell you to do in your science class, right? So why are we doing it to ourselves? Why are we saying, this is the year I make 10K a month or whatever your version of this is, without any real, without that being connected to an action that we can identify, to things that we've done in the past that have generated revenue, to, an actual number that is reflective of your history in that arena, right? So same thing with anything that is out of my direct control. And that's, I guess, where I'll end here. The big thing about this process, about the experimentation, about the science fair board, about Big Paper Planning Day that I always just want to come back to is this idea of the locus of control, right? There are things that are within my control. That is what I call my actions. Consistency in action for me comes from accommodation. So the way that I am consistent, the way that I begin to see myself as a consistent person is through those action menus that give me an option for a high energy day and gives me an option for a low energy day. Those alone are game changing because it does help with the identity piece. And more and more, I think the identity piece is the most important thing. Just being able to be self-compassionate, to see ourselves as the kind of people who do good things, right? Even on a day where it was hard to get out of bed, even on a day where the results, right, were not what we expected them to be. Because if the actions are within our control, the results are not, right? They're within our influence maybe, but they're not within our control. And so if I'm going to make a revenue target, I need to know every single thing that I can do I need to be able to access or look at or name the things that I can do to generate revenue, because people buying things is out of my control. It's within my influence. It's not within my control. And so it's not fair to me to set a target that is like essentially just asking things to appear out of thin air. You know what I mean? We need things that are rooted in data and that are an educated guess, essentially. So coming back to this idea that like I can't control the weather, I can't control other people, I can't control necessarily even how I wake up and feel on any given day. What can I control? I can control that on any given day, even on a really, really hard one, even on days like when I first started and I told you I was depressed, even for that girl, can I find a way for her to achieve her goals? And the only way that I've ever found to have the answer be yes in that example, in that framework, is to have an abstract goal. And so yeah, that's Big Paper Planning Day. I hope that this was helpful. I just want everyone to have more access to a way of planning or being or living or working or feeling that feels genuinely accommodating, that is genuinely self-compassionate, and that makes space for you to be the kind of person that you are, right? That doesn't expect you to be, let's be honest, a dude with a wife who's handling all the chores and managing the children and then barking at you to just do it. Just do the same thing every single day, duh. Like that stuff just drives me nuts. So this is another way. If nothing else, that's what I want you to know. This is another way. This is in direct opposition to that way. And I hope it helps. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions at all, please comment, and I'll talk to you soon.